Welcome to Cinemonika. Another month passed by where I spent most of my free time just watching movies and TV shows, basically consuming media. So let's get into my March film diary where I talk about every single movie and TV show that I watched during the month. In February, I basically didn't watch movies. I went on a 3-week work trip to Europe, my very first time in Europe, went to Milan and Paris, and it was absolutely beautiful. I loved it so much. It was just like in the movies. I didn't consume any media, which might have been good for me, but anyways, I will talk about what I did watch before I went on that work trip in February. Pretty much all of February, what I watched was all 6 seasons of Better Call Saul. Something about me is that when I'm watching a TV show, it's really hard for me to steer away from that show and watch a random movie. If I'm binging it, I feel like I just need to finish all of it. Literally 6 seasons of Better Call Saul. I love Breaking Bad, and so I really wanted to get into Better Call Saul. And honestly, it did not disappoint at all. Better Call Saul is not really focused that much on the crimes per se, like in Breaking Bad. So there's not a lot of, action in that sense. It's more of a deep character study with Saul, or Jimmy McGill, which I found absolutely fascinating. I mean, the way that Jimmy is undoubtedly Saul Goodman, but he tries to be Jimmy McGill. He tries to be a good lawyer. He tries to be someone that other people can be proud of, but nobody around him allows him to do that. Everyone around him has already made up their minds into what Jimmy McGill is, and so it really doesn't let him grow. It doesn't let him steer away from that. I don't know, I just really loved it. I also love the element of romance. One of my favorite female characters in the Breaking Bad universe is Kim Wexler. It's a brilliant show. So I did watch 4 movies after that, and they were all on the plane on the way to Milan. Here are the movies that I watched. The first one is The Mummy. Don't kill me, but I had actually never watched The Mummy before, and with, the whole renaissance of Brendan Fraser, I really thought that I owed it to myself to watch The Mummy. Yeah, it did not disappoint. I honestly don't know how I hadn't watched it, because I know that I've seen clips of it on TV when I was growing up, but somehow I just never stayed for the whole thing. It was super entertaining, obviously a little bit silly, but what blockbuster from the 90s, 2000s isn't a little bit silly, So then I watched Top Gun Maverick, which I hadn't watched still. Honestly, I'm just not very interested in Top Gun as a movie. I don't know. Never really saw the appeal of it. I don't want to piss off anyone, but it's just, honestly, it just wasn't my thing. I found it very cheesy. I did like the whole sequence in the end, of course. I mean, it had every right beat to make you feel something, I guess I'm not the target demo for that movie, which is totally fine. It's a well-crafted movie, of course. It just wasn't my thing, I guess. Then I rewatched Amélie because I was going to France. Such a unique, quirky, really distinctive film that, it's its own little thing. It's its own little world. There's nothing that I can think of that really resembles it. It has just a one-of-a-kind style that I really like. I really loved it. I think Amélie as a character, I think you can get really drawn to her because, one, she almost says nothing. She's very quiet, but her actions, she seems like such a caring person. I do love that it has such a distinctive color palette. It works perfectly. It just hypes up the quirkiness of it, I guess. Then I watched Old from M. Night Shyamalan for the very first time. I had not watched it yet. I was pretty drawn to how they were gonna get out of it and what was gonna happen. I was personally very curious, but I must admit it was kind of ridiculous. The writing was not great. It really stood out to me. It kind of put me off. I think it's a fun movie to watch, definitely a conversation starter, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a great movie technically speaking, but it did entertain me on the plane. So alright, so that's everything that I watched in February. Like I said, 4 movies and a TV show. That's it. But now let's move on to March. The first movies that I watched in March were on the plane on my way back to LA. The first one is a staple of flight movies for Monika, Mamma Mia. I don't think there's a flight in the past 2 years where I haven't watched Mamma Mia. For some reason last year I started to get really anxious on flights. I was having full-on like panic attacks. I would throw up on the plane, and then I would be so anxious thinking, am I gonna throw up on this flight? Am I going to get sick on this flight? Am I going to feel bad? Am I going to get anxious? And so that made me even more anxious. Something that I found really helped me was watching musicals on the flight. There's something about just singing the songs in my head while I'm nervous. It just really helped me. So I've been watching Mamma Mia in every flight. I just love Mamma Mia. It's just the epitome of a feel-good movie. There's nothing that Mamma Mia can't cure, including throwing up on a plane. Then I watched The Woman King. Ariana DeBose, you were so right.
Viola Davis, my Woman King.
Viola Davis should have been nominated for an Oscar for this role because she was incredible. The whole movie was really good, and I believe it deserved a lot more recognition, to be honest. It's about these all-female warriors in an African kingdom. Viola Davis is kind of like the leader of them, and they train and they fight. The movie was suspenseful, it was exciting, it was action-packed. The choreography for the action scenes was incredible. I think everybody did an amazing job. Not only Viola Davis, although, you know, I don't even have to say Viola Davis did an amazing job. That's a given. It was just a really cool, action-packed movie. And I am not the biggest action girly. I'm not really drawn to action movies. But this one also had a lot of heart, a lot of really heartfelt performances, especially, again, from Viola Davis. It was an epic action movie. Then I watched Anna Karenina for the first time. I honestly don't know how or why I hadn't watched this movie because I love Pride and Prejudice. I love Atonement. I really like Joe Wright movies. And of course, the queen of the period dramas, Keira Knightley. The important thing is that I finally watched it. And you know what? It wasn't what I expected, to be honest. I was expecting something a lot more like Pride and Prejudice, but it was a very wild ride and a lot of filmmaking choices that I wasn't expecting. It really took me by surprise. The editing, the transitions, the cinematography, they were all really cool, but sometimes they were a little bit distracting, I think. I'm certainly not complaining about Aaron Taylor-Johnson as a casting choice, but I feel like he gives off like a modern man vibes. I do want to point out that the ballroom dance scene, mesmerizing. Loved it. 10 out of 10. The movie, I think it was a little bit chaotic overall, but I did enjoy it. I was very into it. Moving on to Dune. I rewatched Dune because, to be honest, the first time that I watched it, I wasn't that into it. I think that it's a great movie. The cinematography is amazing. Beautiful looking movie. Timothée Chalamet is great as well. I just found it very slow paced. Very slow. I am excited, however, to watch the second part. I think it'll probably be a little bit more, you know, fast-paced because we've already introduced the story and everything. Then I watched Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and I actually was invited to the premiere, so I went and watched it with the whole cast and crew. And it was a really fun experience. I mean, I saw freaking Seth Cohen and Blair Waldorf. To be fair, this movie, I wasn't expecting much, but I actually had fun. It was entertaining. I did think that there was a little bit of a disconnect between the main Shazam character and his kid. A lot of the times I felt like they weren't really the same person because they acted corners apart. But other than that, I did enjoy Lucy Liu, Helen Mirren, and Rachel Zegler, and also the other kid. Then I rewatched The Fablemans, and to quote Harry Styles, I love it when a movie feels like a movie. It's Steven Spielberg's own story. It's his ode to how he fell in love with movies, how he decided that he was gonna be a filmmaker. I could relate to him so much, especially the scene where his parents are fighting and we look into the mirror and there's a reflection of him imagining himself filming this moment because that's all that he can think about. It was really fun to see it, you know, from his perspective and also the way that it was executed. I mean, he's a master at just filmmaking in general. I loved it so much. It evoked so many emotions. And yeah, it's a movie that feels like a movie. And it's about movies and Spielberg's love for movies. So, the definition of a movie right there. Then I rewatched Lilo and Stitch. Because why not? They actually just announced that they're gonna do a live action Lilo and Stitch and they cast the little girl who's gonna play Lilo. She seems perfect, but I'm just wondering, how the hell are they gonna animate these guys? That's gonna be terrifying. I'm intrigued. Then I watched Under the Silver Lake for the very first time because, as I mentioned in my last video, my A24 rankings part 2, a lot of people were requesting this one to be ranked, and I actually hadn't watched it, so I did. I thought the movie was a little bit all over the place. I did enjoy it for being honestly pretty out there and pretty unique, and it really tried to do a lot of things to make it more of like a noir film but set in the present day, which I really appreciated. I like the editing, I like the music, the cinematography, all of that. It was a really great effort and I loved it and I appreciated it. The story itself I wasn't the biggest fan of, just because of the way that women were presented in the movie, which I know it's the point, but an entertaining movie nonetheless. I was actually pretty into it. I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorite A24 movies. Then I rewatched A Bug's Life, which is, I feel like, a very, very underrated Pixar movie. I used to love this movie as a kid, never really questioned why ants are purple. And also, do they fly? Do ants fly? Because they fly all over this movie. This movie is very funny. I love the circus bugs, the grasshoppers. They are terrifying, and also there's a lot of graphic things in this movie, like graphic deaths, where I was like, this is kind of a lot for a Disney Pixar movie. I never really questioned it as a kid, but why am I questioning it now as an adult? I don't know. Okay, so now we start a pattern here because I rewatched Toy Story after The Bug's Life. I was kind of in a Pixar mood. I think that Toy Story is pretty much a perfect script. It's funny, it's compelling. The story, the way that the story flows, there's never a dull, boring moment in the entire movie. It's just perfect. All of the characters are so likable, except for Woody. Woody is a jackass. Sarcastic and annoying and jealous and an egomaniac, but he learns, so it's all good. Then, of course, I rewatched Toy Story 2 because I had to. It's so good. It's probably better than the first one, in my opinion. I mean, there's Jesse, Tiro el Blanco, I don't know his name in English, the horse. I've never seen these Pixar movies in English. I always watch them in Spanish because, of course, I grew up watching them in Spanish. The main reason I rewatch them is because of nostalgia. I have to watch them in Spanish. I was curious, so I watched a couple of scenes in English because I wanted to hear Tom Hanks and blah, blah, blah. The way that in Spanish the voice actors really act their ass off. The way that they convey so many things with just their voice is truly an art. Also, this is my absolute favorite line delivery in the entire movie.
Si la bota te queda.
¿Qué dijiste?
Que si
La bota queda. It just, Woody is so sarcastic that it just fits perfectly with his personality. Then I rewatched a movie that I used to love as a teen, and it's called That Thing You Do, and it's actually directed by Tom Hanks. This movie was one of my absolute favorites back in the day. It was about this pop band that got this one viral song. People loved it, they started playing on the radio, and it's just really fun to see how they went from, you know, nobodies to Beatles level of a band. It's supposed to mimic the Beatles a little bit. It's really fun. The song is actually super catchy. I really like the 60s vibes as well. It's really sweet and it's just wonderful. And then I rewatched Babylon. Babylon is insane. It's raunchy, it's gross, exciting, extremely funny. It's hilarious. It's loud, and I honestly love every minute of it. You know what, Damien Chazelle? Keep making movies about the love for movies and the love for jazz and the love for art, because you are incredible at it. Damien Chazelle is someone that has so much musicality, I feel like, and you can see that in every one of his films, which I absolutely loved. I think the way that he just uses the music to convey something, to make a transition, to make a camera move, just, I really like his style of filmmaking. The story itself, I found it extremely entertaining. Margot Robbie did a fantastic job, as well as Diego Calva. I was super invested in everyone's stories in this movie. How they went from nothing to the top of the world to their downfall. Can't go wrong with that, huh? I don't know if I'm a fan of the ending per se. Let me know what your thoughts are on the ending of Babylon. I think it's an incredible movie. I feel at this rate that Damien Chazelle is one of my favorite filmmakers. Whiplash, elite. La La Land, elite. Babylon, elite. He has not missed a single time. As far as TV shows, in March I've been watching Succession. Actually, I've been rewatching Succession because I wanted to rewatch it before the start of the 4th season. I'm so excited. I love the show so much. I love every single character. They're all so horrible. They're all horrible people, but I love them all. Kendall, he's such a complex character, possibly the most complex character in this show. Everything that he's gone through, I really feel for him. I mean, yes, I feel for a billionaire. Shiv, she's probably the one that will most likely stab anyone in the back. I mean, her name is Shiv. Roman, I actually think Roman is the most compassionate one, even though he doesn't really seem like it. Cousin Greg, everything that comes out of his mouth, I'm gonna be losing it. He's hilarious. Everything he says is quotable and iconic. Tom, I mean, you can't make a Tomelet without breaking some Gregs, right? I just love every single character in the show. The show itself is masterful in the writing. Each new season is better than the last, so I'm very excited for season 4. I think the first episode was top tier. Yeah, very excited for this new Succession season. Let me know if you're watching it. That is everything that I watched in March and February. Let me know if you've watched any of the movies that I mentioned or the TV shows. What have you been watching that maybe I should check out for April? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.